So I feel like it's important to address this. I put it off for most of the day, but I waited. I made sure that the sources were 100% legitimate and that the information was what it was. Jason David Frank has passed. The Green Ranger has passed. And the reasons are sad. Let me start realistically by saying that do not take for granted anything. Make sure the people that you care about know you care about them. Don't take for granted that moment when you say goodbye, because it could be the last time you say goodbye to anyone for who knows any reason. Life is crazy, it is fleeting, and it can be gone in any minute due to any kind of tragedy or the struggles you don't know somebody is going through. Sometimes some of the people that look like the whole world is going their way, and they're the happiest person you could ever know, they have struggles too. Just because they smile doesn't mean their life is perfect. And some people have more trouble dealing with it than others. And when everybody thinks your life is so good, it can be that much more difficult to ask for the help you need. Keep your eye on that. And appreciate the people that you have around you. For a lot of people, Jason David Frank was an absolute hero, especially in the Ranger community. Especially in the Ranger community. He was the troubled Ranger. He was the one that was cursed by Rita to do evil and brought destruction down on the people of Angel Grove and the world, as well as putting a stain on the Rangers' reputation that they would deal with for years to come. Once freed, he would dedicate his life to trying to help not only better what he had done, but make sure that it never happened again. He served as the Green Ranger, the White Ranger, the Red Zeo, and the Black Dino Charge, if I'm not mistaken. He also served as an unpowered hero whenever he had to, always willing to step up, even if his powers weren't functioning. And he served as a mentor to a new future generation of Rangers afterwards, and not just the ones that he mentored directly, but many others that came after him. He was also a big deal to a lot of fans and was immensely interesting to meet. I met him at the same time with my wife and my buddy Shane. You would know him as Proto Guy here on the channels. We met him all at the same time, and it was fantastic. He was positive, he was energetic, it was really cool. His booth was right next to the Incredible Hulk, Lou Ferrigno, and he actually drugged the Hulk because their booths were together. He drug him over into the booth that he was in, and they had like a couple jabs at each other and messed around and played, and he had like a couple funny moments here and there when we were talking to him. He took pictures with everybody, he talked with everybody, he made jokes, he signed things, and while he was talking with one fan, he would include others, and there was a lot going on with him. He was just energetic and exciting, and you could tell he was genuinely just happy to be there. It did not feel like an act. It felt like he appreciated the people that were appreciating him in the moment that they had it together. I remember they had to pull him away. His publicist literally had to drag him away to do his photo ops because they said, "Hey man, we gotta go. There's photo opportunities. We're supposed to be there in like 10 minutes. And he's like, yeah. And then before you knew it, he'd sign basically everything that he could sign, and he'd talk to people, and he'd handed out photographs, and he did free pictures. Okay, this wasn't the kind of guy that you got up there and the publicist would take your phone and you had to pay so much for him to take the picture with you. No, you walked up, you paid what, $10 or something. It really wasn't a big price just to get his little autograph on a photo or something, or an item that you brought, and then he'd be like, "You want to get a picture?" And that was it. That was it. You just stand off, they'd take your phone, they'd take a picture for you, or you'd take a selfie, or he'd take a selfie with you, something of that nature. And it wasn't about like where I've been to many other lines for many other celebrities, both at his level and above his level, that are very much like, yeah, you got to pay if you're going to take your cell phone out and you're going to take a picture, and you got to pay if you want me to talk to you, and you got to pay if you want me to sign an autograph, and you got to pay for one of my items in order for me to sign. I'm not going to sign something you brought over here to me, and things like that. And then some people that I've met have also been very business. Like, they sign your paper, they say, "Yeah, that's cool, great to meet you. Come on, there's a lot of people here." And that's literally that quick. You get like maybe 30 seconds with the person that you meet, but it wasn't like that with him. He came around the table, walked through the group, shook hands, gave hugs, signed autographs, laughed, hung out, made jokes. There was even a point in time where he went to sign an autograph on a Ranger helmet that had been brought. And he leaned over and he stuck his butt out, right? And I'm standing there, and I'm the one that's directly behind him. And he turns around real quick. He kind of jumps up and turns around and looks at me and goes, "Did you just touch my butt?" And so, because I'm a class act, I pointed at my wife. And so he looked at her, and she's wearing a pink Ranger shirt, and everybody starts going, "Well, I mean, they did have a thing, right?" And he just rolls with it. He just had a good time. He just made jokes and hung out and was there with the fans. It was in the middle of his fans, the middle of them. Not behind the table, not surrounded by security. He was right there with those fans. And then I went to another thing where I got to meet him a second time at a type of meet and greet where he was answering questions about his career and about Rangers. And sometimes people would ask a question about Ranger stuff. And it was very blatantly obvious that he didn't know, and there was no actual answer because the show never bothers to talk about it. But sometimes they'd ask a ridiculous question like, where's the dragon flute come from? Where's that dragon dagger come from? And then he's like, "So a group of monks," and he'd just make up some BS. Just kind of make up his own headcanon about his own superhero legacy that he thought was really cool. And that's the kind of guy he was. And he wouldn't shy away from the other parts he'd done, too. Like, I mentioned all the other Rangers, but when I met him at the meet and greet, he wore a red sports coat. And why? Because he specifically called out, he says, "I'm giving some Turbo love today." That's right, I was Turbo Ranger. I was the first red Turbo Ranger. Okay, yeah, that's being cool about your entire legacy, not just the parts that you slice up and say, "These are the parts that I did that are really cool and we're never going to talk about those." All of it. All of it. And he had defenses for all of it. And he enjoyed all of it, even when it was negative. This is a huge deal. And and that's what I mean. It wasn't just in the show that he was a hero. In some ways, he was a hero to a lot of actual fans as a person. I remember when the first time I started having weight problems and I started to get heavy, one of the things that started pulling my weight down was this show. And we started talking about Rangers. And when we started talking about Rangers, I started rewatching the series. And I reconnected, strangely enough, believe it or not, with Tommy. And as I watched the show, it re-piqued my interest in martial arts. And I started practicing again. And I pulled about 50 pounds off my weight. And that was back then. And I remember when I got there, and I got to meet him, I was still pretty heavy at the time. And I said, "Hey man, I just want you to know, and I know this is very indirect, you probably hear it all the time, but believe it or not, you've been a very powerful indirect influence on me getting my weight back under control. And he didn't just pass it off. He said, is that real? He said, how much have you lost? I said, 50. And he said, how you doing it? And I told him I was kind of getting back into martial arts, and that's kind of where my mentality was. And if I kept practicing, it kept working my cardio, and my cardio, of course, led to one good thing after another. And he went out of his way to ask his publicist, his personal assistance person that was there, right there. He said, excuse me, hey, come over here for a second. Brought him over, and he said, can you get that information? And the lady took down some stuff on a card and gave it to me, and it was a link to a couple, like a channel that he did where he taught a couple things, where he'd show like a move or like a simple movement or a grab or a side kick, like the proper way to throw a side kick or something like that. And he'd be like, watch some of these videos, practice them on your own, create your own drills, keep at it, man, keep at it, because he says if you've honestly lost 50 pounds, then you're on the right track, keep going. He encouraged me to be a better me for no other reason than just to do it. And he didn't say, hey man, I got a subscription where you can like subscribe and you can like give me a bunch of money and I'll teach you some moves. No, he just gave me free stuff and said, keep going, man. And I know I'm not the only one. I know there are a ton of stories out there where people met him and he was every bit as cool as I am describing to you right now. Have we called him out on the show before? From time to time. But we've called everybody out on the show before, from time to time. He was a person, first and foremost. And that's another thing I'd like to really get in here, is people are people. Sometimes they make mistakes, sometimes they're mad, sometimes they say things that they don't necessarily mean when they say them, and sometimes they get lost in themselves. And sometimes they learn and adapt and evolve and change as they get older, and that's life. And while they do that, sometimes they suffer. Sometimes they're struggling with things that they won't let you know. And sometimes that struggle is too much, and they make this decision. If anybody has stories or anything about this, if you want to talk about it, if you want to say what's going on, your thoughts, did you meet him, things of that nature, post under the video, of course, in the comments, talk about it, share your experiences, and remember that ranger. Remember that man, because he was cool, and this is a legit tragedy, because this news could have came about 1,000 different ways, and this is probably the worst way. To know that he was suffering like that, to that degree, and that we didn't take notice, that's heartbreaking. Always is. Watch the people you love. That's what I'm saying. Remember this guy. Share your favorite episodes. For the next week or so, comment like crazy under this video. And not to share it and get it out there and get everybody on board and make a lot of views. I don't care. It has nothing to do with that at all. What it has to do with is saying, remember this man and let's talk about him. Let's get a whole week of comments, or I don't care how long it goes. All your Jason David Frank stories, all your Ranger stories, all the stuff that you want to share. If you want to do pictures and whatnot, if you find this on Facebook and you want to do pictures of your collection with your Green Ranger stuff, if you want to just tell me about when you met him, if you want to tell me your favorite episode, whatever you want to say, this is it. Post them down there. Say what you got to say. Let's keep it rolling. Let's keep it rolling for as long as we can. Let's make this the Jason David Frank post. Let's say what we got to say. Let's honor the man for a while. And I wish him wherever we go from here, I wish him all the best. Rest in peace. Sad news. Take care of yourselves. And watch out for the people you care about. Later on.